Awesome. So 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
All right. So we're here. We're not live, which is not normal for me. So I lost all that pressure. But I appreciate you coming on.
So you edit out all the bad things I say.
No, we enhance those. Okay. So what we do is every 12 seconds we put 3 seconds of bad stuff.
Look what he did. Put it on repeat.
Exactly. Okay. So Dan, politics.
Yes.
You know, we both come from service. We're both veterans, and from a lot of my friends in service, politics is a bad word. So what is it? I know this is a few months old. Why, why politics?
You know, maybe because it is a bad word, and you know, and because guys like us, I think we come from a place with a lot of credibility. Mm-hmm. I think that the civilian government that governs the military, where we come from, should also have that same credibility.
Yeah.
And you know, it's helpful when you got veterans who really put service before self and put country before self, and getting more of us into the political realm, I think, is beneficial. You know, and bringing that credibility to Congress.
I mean, that's our strength, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're taught. I don't care if you come through and you serve finance for 12 years in the service. I mean, you still serve. Yeah. You still go to the same training. You still do your TDYs. You still do all your deployments and things. And why is it, do you think, more veterans don't get involved? There, we have the knowledge, we have the ability, we have the leadership. We're trained. Nature is to serve over self. Like, what's keeping us out?
Oh.
And don't flip that question on me, because I'll go silent real quick.
Having been in politics now for just a couple months, I can see why it discourages people. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, the way our campaign finance works, you have to be wealthy. Not just because funding your campaign, but just funding your own life while you're campaigning. Yeah. You've got to be able to put food on the table while also having a 24/7 campaign going. How do you do that? That's why you see so many lawyers in, right? Because they can do hourly, you know, fees for what they do, and also campaign at the same time. But your average person who maybe really who's a good person, and you know, we might want an office, can't necessarily campaign for a whole year. Yeah. And put food on the table. You know, we're having trouble doing it now. I'm not independently wealthy, so it's hard, and it's just, that's why. I mean, it discourages a lot of people. So the finance part discourages a lot of people. Yeah. And on top of that, it's just the world you immerse yourself in, and you know, it becomes clear to you that not everybody's in this for the right reasons, and that's very discouraging. And it's, you know, people are backstabbing. You know, you're looking for dirt on each other. It no longer becomes about the issues and just the passion of serving the people. It's just about winning and strategy, and you know, that's really not where we come from. Yes. I think it is about the mission for us, and it is about the why.
Right.
And you know, strategy is important, but the strategy is there to make sure the mission happens. Right. It's to commit to that, and it's almost flipped. Yeah. It's almost become a game in politics where like the winning and the strategy is more fun and more important to people than the actual issues.
The game, the chase.
Yeah. And you still meet a lot of great people. Don't get me wrong, you do, but you still see those people who are like, well, it's my turn. I've got enough money I can throw behind it. And my competition can only take a max donation from somebody, but I can throw in $1 million, and that's what they're doing. That's what my competition does.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Is, you know, so I'm going to relate this a little bit to promotions in the service, because we're both there. And when we go up and we go in front of our boards and we do our things and have our interviews and our testing, it's all about highlighting us. It has nothing to do with everyone else that's going for that same rank or same position, right? And that's something that is tough for me to get in politics, or to understand in politics, because coming from that very logical system that makes sense and works.
Yeah, merit-based. You mean like kind of merit-based promotions, and
right? And because it's done, how do you qualify for this? Yeah. What are your test scores? What are, you know?
Right.
You look
at
all these things.
Military either. It's
right.
It's everywhere.
And most places are that
except
way.
Politics.
Yeah, except politics.
Yeah.
So, what is it? You may not have the answer to this. Nobody does, obviously, because of the state of the politics. But what do we do to increase that accountability, that merit system, or the trustworthiness of Congress? How do we get there?
Well, I didn't have a whole lot of opinions on campaign finance before this, but now I do. And it's, you know, you should not be able to self-fund your campaign. Right. Period. Right. That really, I mean, it makes politics just for the millionaires who decided that they built enough political connections and enough wealth to now just fund their campaign.
Right.
Whereas, so your average guy like me, I can only take $2,700 per person.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going up against millions. and what makes them more qualified than me, except they have more money.
Right.
You know, so that would be a major win, I think, and it would really just level the playing field. You know, because everybody's got a website, right? And if a voter wants to be informed, they can be. They can go to the forums. They can see the candidates side by side. Unfortunately, that's just not how campaigns always work.
Yeah.
You know, it's about just name recognition, and if you can pay your own commercials out there and get that word out there, that's how people win. So I'd encourage Americans always just to do your research and look at us side by side. And you know, it takes a little bit of extra effort, but it's worth it.
It does.
In there.
In line with that is what's just taking you, not worrying about competition or other races and things of that nature, is what's a good way to get quality information on a candidate without having to go through 5,000 channels?
Yeah.
Because obviously if we go to a website,
go to the website, you get a feel for somebody on their website. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you, of course. But you know, there should be links, say, to interviews, and you know, you get a feel for somebody that way. The best way is always watching forums, and you know, I try to post my footage from forums on there. For our race in particular, the Houston Pastors Council recorded their entire forum, so you really get to see every single candidate side by side, how they speak, how they answer questions. That's a great way to do it, and I always encourage folks to do that. And I think we've posted those links on our Facebook page.
They were,
at least.
Well, they were one of those. I looked at all of them, so now
it takes work. There's no easy, you know, unbiased. Well, some groups do put out maybe unbiased descriptions of each candidate, but candidates aren't necessarily going to lie about their biography. Right. All the time. Not necessarily. They might.
I was like, I'm bleeding now.
I mean, I take that back. They might. I don't. But you know, it takes time. I wish it were easier to do the research and to know everything there is, but it does take work, and our average person just doesn't have time for it. You know, we would hope that every commercial you heard was completely factual and completely true, and that so it's just, and even the media sources that you might trust, you really don't know why they're supporting a certain candidate sometimes.
Right.
You know, maybe they got a lot of donations, maybe a lot of endorsements came because of some other backroom deals, and you know, I've already seen a lot of that.
Yeah,
and
that was the key back. Well, I'm gonna shift it and say, I like what you're doing in the sense of this: is you're going social through social media, not going social, going through social media, which I think is important because it gives a ton of snapshots of what's going on. Yeah. And yes, you can
know me.
Yeah, you can doctor photos and things like that, but some of your stuff doing where it's a video or where it's Facebook Live that we talked about, things of that nature, people get to see these snapshots of reality, as opposed to these doctored up massive promotions. And then they're going to get a feel for you. They're going to connect.
Yeah, and we try to do a lot of that.
One of them
primarily what we do,
which is, you know, and our family, we're huge NFL fans and all that stuff. So we saw the J.J. Watt stuff and all these up for the Man of the Year award and everything, and that was one of the things that I see a lot of you doing, is getting out with sledgehammers, banging up, and helping out with some of the Harvey stuff that's going on. Yeah, which is
that's big for me.
Which is awesome.
Just do it. There's some places in my district have really been ignored. A lot of the money that J.J. Watt's raised too, it went to some great organizations, but a lot of those organizations weren't necessarily working in the western side of Houston. Yeah. So you know, we're actually doing a run. Well, I'm doing a run. I always say we, because you know, it's a team effort. Yes. But I'm really the one doing it. on this running 100 miles through the district, and it's 100 miles because we're zigzagging a little bit. Yeah. And trying to raise money and attention, and just get focused on some of these neighborhoods and some of these groups, like the one I was working with on Saturday. They call themselves, they're just kind of an unofficial group. They're out there all the time, called the Helpers.
I saw. Yeah.
And they're doing really great stuff, helping folks in that neighborhood who really can't help themselves, and just rebuilding. Because I mean that. When I was with Team Rubicon back just after Harvey, I was in that neighborhood, you know, and saw the devastation. And the reality is that a lot of the debris's been picked up. People still aren't living in their homes. It's still, it really still needs help. And this is months later, and you know, the funding has dried up. Maybe the FEMA money didn't get there quite in time. I mean, just the budget's still on hold up in Washington. So a lot of this disaster relief is being withheld. And I think Chuck Schumer just came out with I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, it was, we're not letting disaster relief go until we get some kind of deal for the dreamers. And it was, like, really? That's just unacceptable.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into knocking anybody, but that slides into a lot of things that I actually wanted to talk to you about. Is when you get to Congress, look, I'm already, so when you get to whichever, we trust the fact that you're going to be there, right? Does that make sense? And you may not yet. It's going to happen. So when you're there, being a junior congressional member, and you're going to have to deal with the likes of career politicians like the Schumers, and the list goes on both sides, and in the middle and things. Do you have a plan on how you're going to deal with that? I mean, that's a serious, like, I really have no ideas.
Nothing happens immediately. You got to build your relationships. You got to build your credibility. You got to make the right arguments, right? And you got to understand what incentives, and it kind of maybe taking some of the lessons I've learned at the SEAL teams and working in different parts of the world. Understand what incentives people are operating off of and leverage those. Get the word. Leadership is also inspiring, right? We're talking about leadership. You can just vote, and if whatever candidate you choose in this primary, we'll all vote the same.
Right.
But if you want some influence, then you have to have a candidate who knows how to fight, who knows how to build coalitions, who understands how the process works, because I've worked up there. I've built relationships with members of Congress, and I'm probably one of the few who has, without money, by the way. People who support me because they believe in me, not because I've paid them off. And
that's what I've learned really quick.
Can't say that about everybody in my race. So, connecting with people, right? So, like, we don't value the simple stepping stones enough of making things happen. And first, it's connection. Just go engage. You can get a lot done that way. I don't know that we do enough of that on Capitol Hill, right? Because you go in there, you vote, you go back to your office, you go right back to the district. Why do you go right back to the district? Because you're always being opposed, because you're always running for office, because we have 2-year limit, or 2-year terms. That ain't going to change anytime soon. So you just got to make the best use of your time, and just kind of be a fighter, be aligned for the cause. Which is what I plan to do. I've got a long history of getting different federal agencies together and making things happen. Whether it's the CIA and the State Department and the Department of Defense, I've developed programs with all the stakeholders, and that takes just engaging, connecting with people, understanding what they want and how to get there, and the legislative process is largely similar.
And leadership is key. It's huge, and that's something I taught through everything that we go through with service. And one of those things, I want to kind of we may disagree on this, which would be awesome for footage if we do or not, but one of those things that Schumer's going for big time, and the Democrats are swinging for, is the Dreamers and the DACA and all of these things that are going on. And I mean, we've read your platform. Our border security is huge, national security is huge, and it should be, absolutely. And my personal opinion is, you can't fix DACA and the Dreamers without fixing the border. It just simply, that order of events doesn't work. But in the district that we're in, there's a lot of Dreamers. We know that, being this part of Texas and things of that nature. So
it's a 30% district.
Exactly. And that's from this. So that's not even necessarily collecting all those. Do you have a message? Because I mean, that's important for them and a lot of their family members. And then I know a lot of Hispanics that are Republican.
And here's and I agree. Like, border security comes first. We've got to. Without fixing the border, you can't just keep granting, legal status, amnesty, whatever you want to call it. I would hope that as Americans, whether you're an immigrant or not, you could agree on that. Like, you have to have basic borders. I'm not budging on that. And I've spent a lot of years in South America. I've lived in Ecuador. I've lived in Colombia. Speak Spanish. I understand Latino culture very well, and I understand how they view their own countries and borders. And it's, we just want the same. We just want the same kind of respect. That's it. And I think they understand that too. I think that the debate got overheated with rhetoric that was frankly unnecessary.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate. But we do need border security first, 100%. I don't believe in chain migration. I believe in a merit-based system. And the issue with putting dreamers on a path to citizenship right away, who does that hurt? That hurts immigrants. It hurts immigrants who are doing it the legal way and are still waiting in line.
Right.
What I like to see is a very hard stop on illegal immigration, very hard. Now, and then we can make up for that with a much better and more efficient legal immigration system, okay? Because we stop one here, we can move this one up here, we can get the people we want in the country.
Right.
There's still a lot of businesses who can't get the labor they need. All right, well, let's make it legal, and let's get the right people here who can actually fill those jobs, not just open borders. And the more rhetoric I hear of the Democrat side, the more it's clear to me that what they actually want, what they actually believe in, is open borders, path to citizenship, so they can get more votes. I don't think they actually care about the Latino population. I don't think they actually know anything about the Latino population.
Right.
I really don't.
Some don't. Some very clearly don't, and that's
and
that's evident.
you know, I've lived it. I speak the language. I've lived in South America for a while. I mean, geez, total maybe 5.5 years.
Okay.
I lived.
So you know.
Yeah.
So it's. I could be a little bit off on these numbers. You may know them better than me, but I think we allow 1 million people a year to migrate into the U.S. officially. This isn't any of the illegal or anything.
I'm not sure what the numbers are.
It's somewhere around there. And then I think President Trump's last proposal was to give some level of amnesty or path to citizenship to 1.8 million dreamers and DACA people. Which, what does that do to the million? If it's a million, it's around there. A million per year.
It hurts them. It hurts them because we only slots. Even if we upped the quota, there's still a backlog, right? So it does, and it's not just the 1.8 million; it's their extended family too. If we don't have chain migration, that's a real issue. That could be up to 10 million now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's a difference between legal status and path to citizenship. I absolutely will not support any prioritized path to citizenship.
True.
Once you have legal status, you can go on the regular path, and that's waiting 5 years to apply, and if you're married, it's waiting 3 years. We already have a path. We don't need to talk about additional paths.
Right.
And that's not necessary. The Democrats only want it because they're trying to rile up their base and call us names and shame us, and that's just what they do.
I know people get emotional about this heavily, so I want to, before we get away from this, I want to make sure we clear that so people understand really what's going on. Is one, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think our laws are good for immigration. We just need to enforce them. I think it's really that simple.
It is. It usually is, yeah.
They seem pretty good from everything.
Nobody's really proposing extra laws. I mean, there are some extra proposals. Again, changing the way we do chain migration versus merit-based. That's a complicated one.
And it's more modern because that wasn't really on the radar.
Yeah, and it's more what other countries do.
Right.
We're one of the only ones that don't do it. We're also one of the only ones that if you're born here, it automatically gives you citizenship status.
Right.
We're one of the few countries that actually does that. There's reasons for these laws. There's history behind them, but they're outdated.
Yes.
And they create perverse incentives.
And
That's
they do.
problem.
And something I want to be careful of is that you're not affecting a humanitarian effort. You're not being inhumane by saying we have to do something that's fair for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the nature of a democracy, right? Or a republic, because we balance on the two. Really
as Republicans, we're getting bullied on this issue constantly. We're called names and trying to be shamed into just whatever it is the left believes these days. I'm not really sure.
I'm going to put words in your mouth.
What it is.
Yeah, and that's so I'm going to put words in your mouth and try that. Is say that it's not necessarily the best thing to send a dreamer back that's been here since they're 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, and that's not really what we're talking about. We are talking about a difference between legal status and path to citizenship.
Right,
though.
and that's kind of what I'm trying to lead you to.
What's really frustrating on the Democrat side is these conversations were going well right before the government shut down.
Yes.
We were talking about legal status and okay, we're giving you guys what you want, and then they lost their minds and went straight to government shutdown. For a deadline for the DACA Act, or expiring I think in March.
Yes.
So it was an absurd tactic, and I think they miscalculated heavily on that. Now Trump is proposing 1.8, even more. Right. So what they want, 1.8 million on a path to citizenship. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all that.
Did you read the new one?
But what's even when did that come out today?
I think I don't know if it came out yet. That's why I was curious that when you say path to citizenship, was it?
He said those words.
Was it speeding it, or was it just plugging them
it's
into
unclear.
the system?
I think it's unclear exactly what that means. You know, because technically everyone can find a path to citizenship.
Right.
There are paths, really. If you're a legal resident, there's a path. You know, whether it's getting married to a U.S. citizen, and then or after 5 years of permanent legal status, you can.
Right.
There's paths. So maybe that's what he meant. I'm not sure.
I don't know either.
The details need to be, read into. But the point I was going to make was, despite those concessions, Democrats they're on record calling us racist.
Yeah.
And okay, like now I don't even think they're being serious anymore. Okay, because like I really don't know what you're looking for except to rile up your base with misinformation campaigns.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to find a solution here, and it's a very logical solution. And if you look at the rhetoric for Democrats over the last couple decades, and you read speeches from Clinton and Obama, it would sound like Trump. It would,
Yes.
you could say that Trump said this, and Democrats would lose their minds. Well, what would you think if Bill Clinton said that, or Hillary Clinton said that, or
They've
Barack
been playing
Obama
them.
said that?
And they've been playing
We all
those,
used to agree on these things. I don't understand why it became controversial all of a sudden to talk about border security. And Dianne Feinstein had one too.
They're all over the place.
Completely gone.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's the leftist. It's just they've completely gone off the rails on this particular issue, where I think we could have some real common sense, and they're dividing people.
Yes.
And it's a very divisive ideology, and it's hurtful to everyone. I don't see what their end game is, frankly.
Well, I think it's this. I think, and this is a word I hear bounced around in all the podcasts everywhere, is that it's extreme tribalism. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with your perspective, being a conservative Republican, being right, wrong, indifferent, logical, illogical, science-based, bro science-based. I don't think it's any of that. It's just simply, I have a D and you have an R, so we have to beat you.
Yeah,
I think
this is America. We like our teams.
Right. I really feel like that's it.
You're getting into the political science theory behind it. That's absolutely what it is. There's some serious tribalism, and statistically, if you vote Republican once or vote Democrat once, it's very unlikely you'll ever vote another way, because you've become emotionally attached to that decision. And it's very hard to break free from that.
I have no idea how to break it, because I have a ton of friends on both sides, and I have to lead a lot of conversations.
And we can for the most part, I can always just have conversations with them. But those are one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
Those are usually between reasonable people. When we get up to Washington and you're calling us racist after we gave you what you wanted, I really don't know where we can go from there. I just don't.
Racism is a problem. Let me start with that. And I laugh because it's just that term is thrown around so loosely.
Right, and it's a serious term.
Right,
and it should be meant as an incredibly horrible insult.
Absolutely.
Because when it does exist, it should be eradicated
instantly.
And to call us names like that when we're talking about what I think is pretty common sense policy, or we're negotiating policy, then you've lost me. Like you've lost. I no longer believe you're a serious thinker if you're name calling,
which stifles future negotiations for that and anything else. So again, it kind of tweaks that.
It's unfortunate where those debate's going. We'll see what happens with it.
It'll be interesting.
I think you know where I stand.
So one of the fun, I say this because it's more of the pop culture type things, is get your opinion on the whole CBD and cannabis and weed becoming legalized in so many states, with the revenue, the insane amounts of revenue that's being created. And to give you my 10 seconds, so you know my position, I'm lifetime drug free. I've never had drugs. I've never had alcohol. I've had prescription meds a couple of times for surgeries and things of that nature. Through all of my athletics, I'm drug-free, PED-free, no banned substance. Like, that's my mentality. But then I'm kind of like, I'm seeing this stuff with all the cannabis, and I'm like, some of it makes sense. I'm like, is this about to go
for medical purposes?
Well, for medical, but then also the hemp for paper and clothes and recreational use and things of that nature, that it's expanding that market as such. And I know a lot of veterans love the CBD oils that are now okay to get, if that makes sense, that they're having a lot of success.
I'm not educated enough on the intricacies of the hemp clothing and oils and things to really have an informed opinion on that. I'm really not for recreational legalization.
Right.
I'm just not. I also don't believe it's a federal issue. I'm always going to push decisions down to the local and state issues. If Colorado and California want to experiment with that, I disagree with it, but that needs to be a state issue, and the voters voted on it. I'm curious to see what kind of effects that has. In general, I don't like to see us normalizing behavior like that. I don't. What is the societal benefit of having everybody high?
Exactly.
And I don't quite get it, frankly. We've already got alcohol, and it's also well known that I think if you're under 26 and you smoke a lot of marijuana, that you will have a 15% decrease in cognitive abilities. That's just what the science says.
Right.
If you binge drink, it does the same thing. So
or more.
Yeah,
Based
or
on
more.
Science,
yeah. So like, what's the point of legalizing it? Like, are we enforcing it better? Is it for tax revenue? I mean, we've got to take a serious look at the pros and cons and what it does to a neighborhood too, and what it does to some streets in Colorado and the kind of the back and forth there. So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon in Texas. And if I was asked, I'd say no, I don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
Do I get that people want their freedoms? Yeah. Does that mean we normalize those things? Like, no, it doesn't.
And I agree with you.
Normalization is really the word that I want to use for this. It's, listen, do we all sin? We all sin.
Of course.
Okay?
Of course.
But do you normalize sin just because it's comfortable? And that's the question, and that's, as a conservative, where we fight against it. Don't normalize sin.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah. And if there is a medical benefit to it, all day long.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, there's a whole...
Now, the problem is that a place like California, it's, oh, my foot hurts, here's your marijuana. Really?
Everything is going to be abused.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to most likely there's good laws in place. We just have to enforce them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's one of the big ones.
The medical conversation is different. I've heard plenty of testimony where medical marijuana has helped certain medical conditions.
Yeah.
Can have a conversation about that. I'm not really willing to have the conversation about recreational marijuana. I'm always going to disagree with it. It's because I just don't believe in normalizing that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
I get that people are going to do it.
I'll build a lot of enemies by saying this, but
yeah.
I think we should denormalize some of the alcohol use and kind of track that back a little bit. But
right, yeah, because like I said, the same statistics apply to binge drinking too. It's not good for people. Like, it's just, what does it help our society? Just to, I get you want to have a beer too. Like, I'm not alcohol free. Like, I'll have a beer.
Yeah. And please don't think I'm judgmental at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Judging
But
me.
yeah, I mean, I'll offer people beers, and that's not the issue. It's just personal choices. So something this is more dear to me than most is one of the things that you put on your website is talking about health and nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about your mother a little bit, which I mean, I know that's tough to have grown up through, but the positive things that she had done, being the nutritionist for the district.
Katy ISD.
Yeah, for Katy ISD. How do we fix that? Because I intentionally have two boys. I intentionally keep them out of public schools. One is because of one of the things you touched on is that basically a good experience and developing a good person is about the teacher in that environment. And so many teachers in the public systems are burnt out. I think, I'm going to project, I think they're underpaid. I think they're undervalued.
I was just meeting with some Mumble ISD teachers yesterday and just how bad the pay system is.
It's horrible. And then on the nutrition side, it's
just as bad.
Yeah, I think they're doing what they can, but they have a budget and they have to make contracts, and these contracts sometimes are 10 and 12 and 13 years long, and so they get locked into something that they just sort of had to do, and there's no way to go back and correct it.
Yeah.
Is that really, should that totally be a state and local thing, or should the federal government kind of start to step in a little bit and subsidize some, or how, have you thought about that on the...
Yeah, I mean...
That most likely will never reach the legislative while you're there, but...
Education in general still should be state and local.
Yeah.
It's kind of, with all these conversations, whether it's healthcare or education, trust your doctors, trust your teachers.
Yeah.
Because I think Democrats will try to legislate out the couple bad apples, right? And they create an insane amount of regulations and paperwork for everybody just because there's a few teachers who don't quite do it the right way. I think as conservatives, we accept that there's some things that just are going to go wrong. Right. And I'd rather not hurt everybody to try and avoid, try to legislate everything perfectly. I was just talking to some teachers about this literally yesterday.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And how much paperwork and hours get put into just some of these silly requirements that come from the Department of Education,
right,
that come from the federal level. And they'll say, like, I'm not really sure what the Department of Education does for us. Now, yeah, they do fund certain programs here and there, and that's good. I think the role of the Department of Education is really, getting the data, understanding it, finding best practices. You can push that information down, but when you start putting mandates on teachers constantly and over-regulating them, like it makes a hard job even harder. Let good teachers be good teachers. We do need to solve, but it is a state and local issue.
Yeah. Is there something maybe on a federal level we could do, like I'm playing the what if game on you, which sometimes I hate, but it's not every day we get to do this.
To improve that?
Yeah. Is there something that we could say, okay, well, educators and first responders are classified as ex-employment and they are exempt from taxes?
I don't know about exempt from taxes, but subsidizing their pay wouldn't be the worst idea. I mean, when you have GS 11, 12, 13s up in the Department of Education making pretty good money, plus their Washington D.C. extra pay they get for that, and you got teachers who haven't had a pay raise in 22 years. Right. That's pretty unacceptable. I'd rather see the billions of dollars from the Department of Education, maybe start filtering down. There's not a good silver bullet answer for that. There's not a good legislative answer for that. There's a ton of proposals out there, I think. But in general, yes, if we're talking about paying teachers more in a merit-based system, then the question becomes, well, how do you gauge their performance?
That gets real hard.
I had a long conversation about this just yesterday, and there's no good answer for that.
No.
Right? Because it can't be really based on kids' test scores, because it depends on the school, it depends on the subject, depends on, are they in the gifted and talented group, or are they in the mid-level group? It's just, wow. Well, it gets extremely complicated. Right. We don't have, the only national test scores we have are SATs and ACTs. Texas has some of its own, California has its own. Mm-hmm. There's no way to really tell which teachers deserve more than others.
Right.
Should you base it on years in? Maybe. That's tenure. Not in Texas. We don't do tenure. So, God, it gets complicated.
It's really hard. And who develops the merit scoring system? Who developed this?
Right.
And then if the teachers know they're going to get a raise, if all their kids do good, well, then they bump scores.
What incentives does that create?
We had that with illiteracy back in the 60s and 70s.
But, kind of an easy button to press would be cut administrators' costs, or cut administrator funding. Administrators with less experience than social studies teachers who are overseeing social studies, but they have less experience in it, are getting paid way more than teachers teaching it.
Yeah,
who are staying up all night grading papers. Like, no. Yeah. And why don't? But again, that's state and local. We could fix that here. That's not fixed at the federal level. Yeah. That's fixed here. Why aren't we doing it? Like
there's got to be something. And I do agree. I think that's a local deal. It's just I think there needs to be federal support, which doesn't necessarily need to be financial. I don't always think the federal government needs to start dumping money on things.
Yeah, the problem is that support starts to look a lot like burdensome regulation.
It does.
It's because it's always meant well. All regulation is meant well. It always means well.
Oh, yeah. Feels
good, doesn't do good. That's the essence of federal regulation most of the time. Always feels good because we're trying to do the right thing. Like, for instance, if something you and I probably didn't have growing up, but teachers have to deal with now is, accommodations.
Yes.
So if your parent writes a letter, it's like, well, my student can't hear about these subjects, so now you have to accommodate them. The teacher has to keep all of this in mind while teaching, and the federal government forces them to do it as well. And also, if they're diagnosed with ADHD or whatever, now the federal government says you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do this. The teacher's just trying to get through the day, and they just can't. I get why the federal government stepped in to do that. Well, we want to accommodate students and do this and that. What has it really done? I mean, how did we all grow up without this just fine? It seems like
it amazes me.
Yeah. So the teachers are drowning in this kind of things.
And I watch. It's not just here. I mean, I have friends all over the country, and it's a pretty common theme across the country. And hopefully that comes around.
See it all the time.
Yeah. So okay, fundraising mixed with guns.
Yeah.
Okay, follow me, because I so massively appreciated it. This was probably a month ago that you had a fundraising event, and one of the things was, I think there was a drawing for a rifle,
right?
And I was just like, how did I not get this email in time?
That's a good way to get folks to our. It's hard to get somebody to come to a fundraiser.
Yeah, so I figure guns and beer, you're good, but beer we got to be careful because they may go home.
There's no shooting, and just to be clear, like still go through a dealer, still have to get the background check. It's we're not surpassing anything there. It's a gimmick to get people to the fundraiser. Most people though actually didn't even want the guns. They just wanted to just donate. We haven't even given out any yet. So
I just thought I just love you go through the deal and it's just.
And then we had a really fun day on the range on Sunday where it's just really we weren't giving away any guns, but we were. I brought some of my SEAL buddies out, and we were just doing some tactical training with folks who wanted to just come out and we sell them a package, and it was fun.
That one I wanted to go, but
obviously I'm very pro Second Amendment.
Well, we know that, So obviously very pro Second Amendment. That's clear. So what do you? Okay, where do you go? This is a total personal question, nothing politics. Where do you go to be able to in the area to go through tactical training? Does that make sense? Because I look for places, and the only place I've found is downrange, which is just north of Mexico, pretty much. It's way, way, way south.
Well, the range we were just using is up in Montgomery.
Okay.
It's not too far.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I think there's others that I just haven't been to, but that was the one we used. As far as.
But it's open door and you can.
Well, it's open.
Outdoor.
It's open outdoor. I think it's a private range though.
Okay.
But I'll hook you up. We'll get you. And also they do classes there with some of the guys we were working with. So.
And I'm fine with the memberships and all that kind of stuff. I love all those things, but it's I had mentioned it in one of the emails. There's the Texas Gun Club, which is near me out in Sugar Land, and in their rifle range, they'll clear that out, and then you can go through and do things, and it's I think 75 yards.
Yeah,
it's indoor. It's all indoor.
Okay,
which was nice. So you can go through and maneuver, and you can do things in there. But sometimes that open air is
nicer. Yeah, they got steel out there. It was just a great time. If you mean actual training, though,
Well, I hate to say training, but go through things.
Yeah. You can get dynamic. It's free. It's open there. It's a good spot.
And then I want to practice on some of the 3-gun stuff because I've been researching that, and it looks a lot of fun. And it's hard to practice anywhere. And
with the what guns?
The 3-gun, like 3-gun tournaments.
Oh, okay.
So it's typically a rifle, shotgun, and pistol, or they pick 3 guns and you go through and you maneuver and you're timed and you get the whole thing, and it just looks fun.
Yeah, you could probably do that here. Yeah, but I'll link you up with the guys who normally set it up. It's that range in particular was more of a private one, and like he really just lets instructors come in and use it. It's not like you can just show up and like buy your ammo. It's not like that kind of range. It was just more his land. So maybe that's just why we use it. Yeah.
If not great, if so great. It's one of those,
we'll link you up with them.
Yeah,
it was good.
So and this is kind of, because I love this. I know you're insanely busy, so I don't want to take a ton of your time.
That's okay.
But are there messages that you want to get out to the people or to potential voters? Because everyone that I've spoken to and messaged, which there's been a lot of that going on social media, I've got in touch with a bunch of them. You got them. It would take a massive disaster for you to lose these people because they're strong and they support you, which is awesome. But the people you haven't gotten to, because the district is weird. Yeah. The map of the district. It's very weird. Yeah. And you have a massively diverse population and demographic running through there. So it's one of those is being a conservative is polarizing. Yeah. Being a liberal or or a Democrat is polarizing. And being anything is polarizing to one or the other. But is there any type of message you want to kind of welcome the other side or open the door up or
to the other side?
Yeah. You want to do a town hall with 150 Democrats and 2 Republicans?
I'm pretty accustomed to debating with Democrats. Yeah. So I don't mind it. We'll do plenty of that in the general election. Make sure we make it there. I would say this. I would say it's going to be. I'm not going to change my values and my policies, but you can count on me to at least understand what the other side thinks and walk you through why we believe what we believe. And you might hear arguments that you're not used to hearing. mean, that could be because you've never looked for them, but also because as conservatives, we're not so good at explaining them. You know,
True.
and so we need to
Yes.
work on that a little
Yeah.
bit. We need to talk to younger people. We need to reach out to a more diverse population. We don't even really try,
Yeah.
I think, a lot, and I think it worries me for the future of the conservative movement and the Republican Party, because I do believe that we have the better system of governance. That doesn't mean that Democrats don't have something to bring to the table. They do. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some things that should be solved at a federal level, okay? We're just more cautious about what we think that is.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Oh,
just, I want it to be looked at harder and longer and, you know, solved first by society, then maybe by local, then by state. Then if there's a true market failure, you know, let's go
Yeah.
to the federal level.
Yes.
That's
And
just, that's generally the philosophical difference between the left and the right. That really should be what we debate. Unfortunately, that's not what we debate. We debate
Semantics.
just, I mean, God, I don't even,
I don't know half the time what gets debated, to be honest with you. It's
yeah,
just,
it's just gotten a little crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I would say support somebody who actually cared about service to their country before anything else and who's
Yeah.
bled for their country, as opposed to somebody who's just trying to buy their way into the seat.
yeah.
And that's a huge difference between me and some opponents. You know, the